He- Hello and welcome everybody to our next webinar. Today our topic will be WorkPoint 365 on top of SharePoint. So I'm very happy that you all are interested in this and hope you will learn a few things. My name is Florian Eckerle and I will guide you through this webinar today. Today, the topic will be presented again, and I'm very happy that our very own CPO Dominick Cosgrove will present the topic. First, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to put them into the Q&As. I promise you I will take care of it, and we prepared after the presentation a few minutes to answer your questions. So now it's time for our presenter, so enjoy it and have fun. Hello, Dom. I'm very happy that you present again, of course, and happy you are ready to show us some great things to make our life easier. So I will send you live.
Hi, Florian. Thank you very much for the introduction and a pleasure to be presenting again. So shall we put the slides live?
You can directly start. Everything is on.
Okay, thank you very much. So as Florian said, today's topic is WorkPoint 365, bridging the gaps in SharePoint. It's not changing slides. There we go. Florian introduced himself and introduced me. I'm Dominick Cosgrove, the CPO at WorkPoint. I'm very happy to be presenting for you today. So today's agenda is really firstly, why is SharePoint such a good collaboration platform? We at WorkPoint love SharePoint. We love Microsoft 365. We built our whole product around it. We see a great value, so I think it's important to kind of call out the greatness that is part of that platform. But obviously, there are the challenges, and I want to identify some of the challenges as to why some projects succeed and why some projects fail, but also, what are the common challenges we see out in our clients, out in the market, and from our own experiences. What are those typical challenges and how do we solve these? And then we'll end up with a summary. But like most of my webinars, I prefer to focus on demos rather than content. So I do have a couple of slides, but I do want to kind of make it as interactive as possible. So these are kind of, for me, and I'm specifically focusing on SharePoint in this webinar. Obviously, we do more than SharePoint. We're part of the whole Microsoft 365 platform, so including Teams, Planner, and all of these other great features that are now packaged as Microsoft 365. But it's really about what does SharePoint bring. So SharePoint has all those good structural components that you need from a content/document management solution. So whether that's lists, libraries, and pages, but it's also got really core kind of document management features that you would expect. The versioning, the metadata, the file type support, the being able to share and collaborate on content is fundamental. We can't underestimate the importance of search in any good content management system. So the intelligent search has become more of a focus for Microsoft and obviously for WorkPoint, because we can leverage that search to make more intuitive solutions. The co-authoring and the tight integration to Microsoft Office kind of work together in the fact that Microsoft Office, because it's built as part of SharePoint and to work with SharePoint natively, you get a lot of rich functionality that you wouldn't necessarily get with a lot of other document management systems. You also have now, and more Microsoft are kind of integrating the Power Platform into SharePoint. So from lists and libraries, you can now do automation, and they've even brought in things like Power BI into that. So it's now the whole Power Platform. It's not just Power Automate, and we see that journey going on. But we bring a lot to that story. I'm not going to go into that too much today, but we certainly have covered it in other webinars, and I'm sure we'll have dedicated webinars on that in the future. And then obviously Microsoft, the cloud scale that Microsoft can bring. There's not many other vendors out there that can actually achieve what Microsoft bring. And maybe one of the key benefits, is the value proposition. SharePoint is part of the Microsoft Office 365 suite. So if you're already invested in it and you haven't enabled SharePoint, then there's a great opportunity there for you. So this isn't necessarily one of the challenges, but in my experience, SharePoint projects can fail, and they're not necessarily always down to the technical or to a feature level. But I did want to kind of give my view on what I've seen projects fail from. So the first one is they're moving maybe from a more traditional ECM solution, which had been designed for a specific vertical. And then they come to SharePoint, which is kind of more of a generic content management system. So they kind of expect to see all the same functionality and all the bells and whistles that you would get with the kind of the dedicated or the traditional ECM solution, and then there's a disappointment. And that's where we feel at WorkPoint we can really kind of bridge that gap to bring those specific features that industries would expect on top of SharePoint. And I'll get into some of that in the demos. SharePoint is seen as a replacement for a file share. That's a recipe for disaster. It just becomes another repository and an expensive repository for documents. So quite often that will fail. They customize the hell out of it. This is the core tenet really of WorkPoint, in the fact that I've been a developer, I've been in consultancy, delivered many projects on SharePoint, and I've seen the consequences of delivering a custom solution. Sometimes it fits, but it is expensive. It costs to manage it, and sometimes the project will fail because of budgetary and the difficulties that are involved. I have also seen that someone within an organization has had a bad experience with SharePoint in the past, and they bring that into the organization, and they kind of set that mental kind of view of what SharePoint is. SharePoint has come a long way since it's kind of through the evolution, and now with SharePoint Online, it's a completely different product to what it was even 2 years ago. Yeah, and then there's people that kind of have a feeling that SharePoint isn't really designed to be an enterprise document management system. We strongly feel it is, and especially when you bring the likes of WorkPoint onto top of it. So all in all, what we see is WorkPoint bridges the gaps in SharePoint to give you that secure, compliant, and well-governed document management solution. And hopefully the last point, that's easy to use. Simplicity is key here. And what we do from a WorkPoint perspective is remove the complexities, and hopefully you'll see that within the demos. So this is the WorkPoint value proposition. As I said in the previous, you can just use standard SharePoint. I will be showing a lot of standard SharePoint today, but it's difficult to get the right solutions. It's a very manual, very expensive, because it's and prone to error. You can obviously build a custom solution, but this is obviously, not only costly from a development perspective, but it's also quite risky, and it requires specialist knowledge. And then we have the kind of the WorkPoint way, which is we give you all the kind of the levers and knobs, and it's all configuration rather than customization. So we've got all the features within that to build your solution. So I kind of broken this down into 3 kind of distinct areas that I feel that WorkPoint kind of really bridges the gaps on SharePoint. So structural governance is the first one. So if you've ever used SharePoint in the past, you may probably have heard the terms like site sprawl and these sort of things, terms used. And that's basically because SharePoint's designed to be empower the users. So the users, Microsoft will say, go and create all the sites you want. It doesn't put the controls necessarily in that you need around controlling what the users can and cannot do. You know, so there's that side of the spectrum, but there's also the other side of the spectrum where Microsoft, you can lock everything down so the users can't do anything, and that obviously puts a barrier up against your business. So you have to find that fine balance of allowing the users to get their job done, but not without process and control and governance. People tend to like to work in hierarchy. Microsoft, good few years back now, kind of said the world's flat, every site is at the same level, which is fine. And then they came up with the idea of hub sites and these sort of things, and you can now have child hub sites, etc. But it's still not particularly hierarchical. It's more of a hub and spoke approach, whereas people tend to think of things in hierarchies. And I'll go into our WorkPoint model, but you'll see that it's very hierarchical. And that's good because people are used to hierarchies from our day-to-day working, whether that's using folders within a file structure or using, you know, organizational hierarchies and structures. You know, when you create something in SharePoint natively, it has minimal data. It's really just the title and description. And again, I'll show this, but you know, you need more information around your structures to be able to make things findable and easy to navigate and to access. So I'm not going to go through all these points. I prefer to show them in a demo. These slides will be available as well, but I just wanted to kind of give you some of the challenges that we kind of see. So what does WorkPoint bring to the mix? So first of all, we provide that whole governance layer via an intuitive structure. So this is what I was saying about the hierarchies. So very quickly, if you're not familiar with WorkPoint, is you can have different business modules. So in this example, we have companies, contracts, projects, and transmittals. And a contact can belong to a company. Likewise, a project can belong to a company. But within each one of these business modules, you can store things. So at a company level, for instance, you might store things like emails related to that customer or that company, documents and events and notes, so those sort of things. But likewise, at a contact level, you may store equally emails related to that contact or documents, and then likewise projects. And today I'll be talking very much in the projects area, but a project, you've got a number of artifacts that you need to store with any project. So this hierarchical structure really kind of is good and easy for people to understand. So the kind of things that we kind of bring through our governance is, you know, we want to empower the users about giving you the confidence that your solution is well governed. So we can do things like control who can create a workspace, who can change metadata about a workspace, who can collaborate on the workspace. You know, being able to navigate the workspaces and find them very easily through kind of a directory structure, which is filterable to be able to actually pinpoint the project that, or the module that or entity that you're interested in. You know, adding that metadata to provide intuitive dashboards. So, you know, if you wanted to be, if you wanted a project management office, you want to be able to see a whole list of your projects and the health of your projects, you can do that. And you'll see through the demo, it's all about templating and getting common structures so that every workspace is created equally. And then finally, what do you do with the workspace at the end of it? You know, a SharePoint site, as we kind of call them, I'm trying to call them workspaces, but SharePoint sites, you know, should they last forever? Should you retain that content from a regulatory perspective, or should you do some sort of archiving? You know, less is more sometimes, and having too much information can actually cause noise. So at that point, I'd like to jump into a demo. So hopefully with demo time, and I will open up my first browser and apologies, I will be jumping a lot through different browsers. So SharePoint natively, it has a great experience. I can go and create a new maybe project. So I go and create a team site, and I can call this, should I call this? There, I can give a bit of a description. I'll just put the title in again, and I can give some privacy and language settings. And that's really it. I can go and add members as well, but I can't really do much more than that when I create a site. It gives me a site, great, and somewhere I can store my documents, my notebooks, my pages and stuff like that. But it doesn't give me kind of a common structure. Microsoft have introduced an ability to apply a site template. Again, yes, you can use one of Microsoft's, you can go and create your own, or you can get a developer in to come and create them for you, but it's difficult. And if you make changes to that site template, how do you apply that and update that? So if I went to go and create maybe this project management one, you know, Microsoft given a great experience to going and creating this template. It takes a little bit of time, but it's actually really fast these days in comparison to what it used to be. So now, you know, within minutes, I've got a project site. This is using standard SharePoint functionality, but in reality, you're not actually getting all that much. You're getting a page which you're asked to go and customize. It even says down here, you know, guide to customizations. You think this is actually a web part that actually does something. It's actually an image. You know, these links are linking off to something that doesn't really make sense. You know, project sample countdown. So, you know, while Microsoft is saying we've got templates, the actual practicalities of these templates are limited. And if I went into maybe my document library, again, it's a document library, but it has no metadata around the documents. So it's good, and it's a lot better experience than it used to be. But the problem is the user then has to come in here and start adding columns, maybe going here and adding an additional document library for maybe budget information. Ooh, if I could type. Within the project. And the user has to come in here and then maybe have to go and add columns and things like that to track the metadata. It's not scalable and not sustainable and very expensive for an end user to do. And the chances are every project you'd go to would be different. So now let's look at the same sort of process, but from the WorkPoint way. So here I'm in a WorkPoint solution. I'm on my home page. I have a number of active projects. I've got some tasks and things like that. I've got some quick actions, and I've got my customers down here, my active customers. For those that aren't familiar with WorkPoint, this is our WorkPoint toolbar. Up at the top, I've got my customers and my projects. So that's the hierarchical model that I showed earlier. And I can come into my project directory and I can see all my projects, and I can do things like maybe go and say, just show me projects of type wind. So I can come in here, and now I'm only seeing projects that are of a wind. So this is a construction company. I'm a project manager coming in, and I just want to see the wind projects. I can go back to my full directory, but I want to go and create a project. So in the SharePoint world, I go and create a site, and then I go and add the document libraries and lists and the metadata that I need. And I didn't have any metadata around a project in the SharePoint world, apart from the name of the project and a description. Whereas you can see here, we've got a lot of metadata around a project. So if I click create a project, it opens up the WorkPoint wizard. And I can give the project the same name as we created in SharePoint. I can say what customer does it relate to. So in this case, I'll go into stock industries. I'll put the project manager as Chris. And I'll put the project team as Jesper. And I'll get into the security, but by me actually putting people into roles, I can actually define the security on the site. So this type will be solar, and a bit of a description maybe. So once I click and save that, hopefully the demo gods will be with me. So it's now starting to create the project, but it's really quick. So if I go into my projects list and I scroll down to the bottom, okay, it's provisioning. This will be, I'll be let down. Okay, I'll give that a second or two more, but it should be almost instant. There we go. Okay, so yeah, it took a couple of seconds to create that new project site, but we do a hell of a lot more than what is done within SharePoint. So here I come in and I've got a similar structure, but it's actually all connected and all ready for me. So for instance, I got my project documents, I got the site activities, I've got my project milestones, but also now I've actually got actual project information showing. I've got my project team, I've got my tasks here, I've got things like my documents libraries. So I've got 4 document libraries, the core projects, budget, email, so I don't have to go and create those manually. And if I come into maybe project documents, I've also got the metadata that's required for this library. So you set it up once in a template and every project will be the same. So if I went back now and had a look at another project, I'll go to the project chase. Here, I can now see, okay, well, I've got a project and it's actually got some content in there now. I've got some tasks and I've got the exact same structure, no matter which project I'm on. And if I make a change to the template, I can push that. So if I wanted a new document library or I wanted some additional metadata on my document library, I can do that. Also, you'll notice up here in our top panel or our top navigation, I've got the information about Project Chase is a project for the Stark Industries. I can open this up. I can get some details about the project. So again, this is all the metadata that's actually been associated to the project. So I can see the title, the project ID, which is auto-generated, the type, the country, etc. And interestingly, the country, you might probably, whether you notice or not, I didn't actually set the country. The country is actually coming from the customer, so it's being inherited down. So again, minimizing the amount of information people have to put in. And then I've got things like my project team. I can see who's the project manager, who's the team, but I've also got my description and I've got what activities have been happening, and I've got my stage model. So what we're doing here is not only provisioning, but we're also putting all that richness of metadata around the content. So making it structured so people can actually use SharePoint and making it easy. You know, within a couple of clicks, I was able to go and provision a new project. I can also control who can do it. And by putting things in such as our process model or our stage model, you can actually control what happens at different stages. So maybe, for instance, at construction stage, you need an additional document library. That's totally possible with WorkPoint. We can add that when you need it. So real kind of just-in-time content creation. Okay, so I'm very conscious of time, so I'm going back to my slides. I'll just check that I haven't missed anything from there. Yeah, okay. So security. You know, security is very key on most content management systems, and in SharePoint, it is really hard. You know, I could go through all of these different things, but yeah, it's really important not to underestimate the effort it is to train people to make sure security is applied correctly, to make sure that, you know, content isn't made accessible to the wrong people externally. You know, how do you manage things like what users can give what permissions? You know, what happens at a very technical level when you have over 5,000 unique permissions? How do you scale, you know, concepts such as permission levels? People aren't going to understand it, even if you give them super user training. It's hard. and it goes wrong all the time, and it ends up being a burden to the IT department when people are just asking, can you give so-and-so permission to a SharePoint site or to a document or to a list. So we extrapolate that and we make it really easy for the user so they can self-manage and self-maintain the permissions. So rather than just say, what do we do? And it's better to show this, but we have a very advanced rule-based engine that you set up once, and it manages all the rules or all the security for you. So it can be dynamic, as in based on information around the project or about the case or about the transmittal or anything within WorkPoint, but it also can be inherited. So it can inherit from a customer. So if you set the properties or the permissions on a customer, it will inherit down to the projects. So really fine-grained granular permissions. It can be conditional as well. So maybe at different stages in a project lifecycle, you want different permissions being set. For instance, maybe the project initiation kind of content that shouldn't be editable once you've initiated the project, because they're kind of the system of record at that point. We can go down to the item level, so you can secure, and I'll go about what entities are, but you can secure what people can do at the kind of the project metadata level. You can control what people can do within a workspace, within the lists and libraries, and even down to the items. We also do things like sharing settings and permission levels. So, if you're showing externally, what can then external users do? So we can really kind of control that level of permissions. And then finally, we've got things called partition security, so that can scale over 5,000 items if you're aware of some of the SharePoint limitations around security. So the 5,000 permission levels or unique permissions. And then we have full audit capability as well. So again, I think it's best to show this. So again, I'm going to start with SharePoint. So we created this project and I created this project folder. So as a user, I want to invite someone to this project, which is fine. I can go to site permissions here. I can go and add a member to group. I can add members. I can start adding members. But SharePoint kind of has taken a really simplistic approach to this. And by being put into a group, you're now given quite a lot of rights. Do you want to give that level of rights? But so I can maybe go, okay, well, Megan, quite happy for Megan to be a member of this. And I can change to be an owner or a member. And those are the two roles. So I'm quite happy for Megan to be a member of this project. But I'm not so keen that she can see the budget information. So what do I have to do? I have to come into the library settings. I have to come in and do permissions for this document library. I can see that it inherits from, so I have to stop inheriting permissions. I have to accept, and that breaks the inheritance. And then I have to go and add users, etc. So you can see that it's a kind of a very laborious process, and also prone to error, and you require the users to understand a lot about SharePoint permissions. And you have to do it manually all the time. So let's go into the SharePoint world and see how it works. So into the WorkPoint world and see how it works there. So if I go back up to my projects, I'm logged in as an administrator just in this one, but I'll show you the experience from the other side. But what I have here is I have a whole 18 odd projects, and I've got a project manager that's assigned, and I've got a project team assigned. So what I've done through our security configuration is set up a rule that says, well, the project manager has more rights than the project team, but I still want the project team to be able to access my project. So what does that look like? So in project Chase, Chris is the project manager and Jesper is part of the project team. So I'll open up Chris's view. I'm back onto the WorkPoint homepage. But firstly, I can see that he only has a few projects. And if I go into here, into the full list, I can see that he doesn't actually have access to all the projects, because I've controlled to say he should only have access to projects where he's either in the project, he's either the project manager or a member of the project team. So he should only see projects that are relevant to him. You'll also notice that for Chris, he can only edit certain items because he is not the project manager of Project Orange or Gemini. He's the project team, but he is the project manager of Project Chase, so he can actually change the metadata. So if I come in here as the project manager, I can come in and I can see things like I've got the ability to go and edit the project, and I can come in and edit the metadata. And if I wanted to go and add an additional project member, so this environment seems to be a little bit slow. It was a lot faster yesterday. And if I wanted to add Trina, do this, I save that. And what's that going to do behind the scene? It's actually going to apply the same permissions to Trina as well. So she'll now have access to the site, access to the content at the right level. But I can see that still logged in as Chris, I have access to my project documents and budget emails and external, and I've got access to some project management lists. If I come in as Jesper, who is a project manager, so I can go to my full project list. I can see that I don't have rights to edit this one, but I do have access to go in. And so I can't come in and edit, I can't change stages, I can't do a few things. And if I come in here to my documents, I don't have access to the budget, I don't have access to the external folder, likewise. So again, through really granular security and through the rules, you can set up a very well-governed solution. Okay, I'm conscious that I'm a little bit behind on my side, so I will move back to presentation and go into the third and final tenet, which is content management. So obviously on a content management system, it's very important to be able to create content easily within the system. So some of the challenges we see is, when adding a document to a document management system, they ask for to enter 7, 8, 10, 12 bits of metadata about a document every time they create a document or upload a document. That distracts the user from using the system because they actually find that as a barrier. So they'll go and look at alternative ways of doing it. Simple things as document numbering. SharePoint has a document numbering system, but in all my years, I've never seen it actually used in production as a core way of numbering documents. Too many organizations have their own numbering system. So, that's a challenge. Users know where to put the content as well. If you don't have a good structure and a well-governed and controlled logical container system, people are going to look at different ways of storing things, or they're not going to know where to put things. So it's that putability. Where should I put my content? And then templates. Most organizations have their own document templates. How do you manage templates within your solution, especially when there's hundreds of them? And the system needs to be more intelligent when you're creating content. So I'll go into that. So rather than me going along all of these features, I will hopefully touch on nearly all of them. There's ability to, we are showing the standardized metadata on document libraries, but we also have things like data inheritance, document numbering service, easy to create PDFs. We've got a very smart document templating creation mechanism. And one of the final things there is really around email management. Email is a type of document. How do you manage emails as well? So I'm going to jump in to the last part of the demo and hopefully show you. So I'll come back into the standard SharePoint world again. So I created this Nitro project site earlier. It looks very similar to what we had. But if I go down to my document library, again, we don't have the metadata, but what I did add was 2 document templates. These are based on what SharePoint terms as content types, which you can manage centrally and push out. But the problem is they're really quite limited on what you can do, and the scalability is not great, because what happens if I had 100 templates and I only wanted a few of them to apply to a project? I don't have that flexibility. So I would have a long list of different templates here. And if I go and create a document, maybe on this business case, I have to go in and manually enter all the information and making sure the version information. So whilst it's good and it's quick and it's a nice experience, it's kind of limited as to what I can do. And if I had additional metadata, say, categorizations or, the approval of the document, I'd have to go and manually add that information, not only as a field, but also when I put the document in, I have to manually add that. So let's do it from the WorkPoint way. So I'll go into my project here, and I'll go into my project documents. So the first thing you'll notice is I've got things like the document ID, I've got customer, country, and project type, and these bits of information are actually being inherited from the project. So, the project solar, the customer, and the project ID is actually part of the document numbering system. So the user doesn't even have to worry about adding that information when they create the document. It's automatically done for them. But I can also go and do things like, go to a different solution. Just need to go to a different solution just because for the document templating part. And here I'm in a carbon bearing project, slightly different layout. I've got things like risks and things like that here. But what I can do is go and create a new document. This opens up our wizard, and I can call it brief. Project description. I can say where I want to put it, but here I've got an option to select an alternative template. And this could be, okay, I've only got a few here, but this could be a very large list. And if I wanted to filter, I can do things like just searching for the document. I've got things like views, and also our system allows you to target different document templates to different project types based on metadata. So you can really target to say only these templates should be applied to these types of projects. So in this case, I want to select a project description, and you'll notice that within this template, I've got these kind of smart locators within chevrons, and that allows us to do things like our smart documentation or smart documenting functionality. So if I do save and edit online, it's actually brought in the project number, the title, the company, all the information about the project without me having to actually do anything. And it even brings me down to things like the project status, when was it last updated, and what's the latest status. So our document templating is really smart and can give you a lot of functionality, but it doesn't stop there. So sometimes you don't want to go and create a single document at a time. You want to go and create multiple documents. So I can come in here and I can create a document set. and I can come down and say, okay, you know, reports, and I want these 3 documents created at the same time. Click save. I've got different options here, and I can just save that, and I'll create all 3 documents. So that's what we call our document set functionality, where you can actually create a set of documents at the same time, which is really powerful. I probably shouldn't have kicked that off. I'll just close that and let that go. The other type of functionality that we offer is if I selected multiple documents, I can actually do batch processing on them. He says I should be able to. So I've got this send to button, and I've got different commands that I can do. So maybe I want to actually combine these 2 documents into a PDF. I can give it a title. I can change the order. I can say that I want the new version, index page, and page numbering, and that will go and create me a PDF document. So I've got this batch management of my documents, and there's a lot of functionality. I could create it into a zip file, for instance. I could make it copy to a transmittal. There's a lot of batch kind of functionality that we support. But content's not always around documents either. Sometimes you have lists and libraries. So while that's running, I can come here. I go into a different one. So you can see that I've got a set of tasks here. And if I go into other, I can see my list of tasks is empty. It's got all the metadata, so that's great. It's in part of my template, but I don't actually have any content. I've got no tasks. Now I can obviously come here and create new, and I can go and create each task individually. But quite often in organizations, you have a set of tasks. So I've got the create task button up here, fully configurable. And I can say, okay, well, you know, what type of tasks? I've got lots of tasks here, but maybe insurance cases, and maybe it's the evaluation tasks. So I want these tasks to be created. Click finalize, click save. And within a couple of seconds, I now have my set of tasks, but it's even a little bit more smart. It's actually gone in and set some due dates based on rules that are put in. It set who's assigned to. Unfortunately, in this case, the case responsible is the administrator, and that's why they're being assigned to that person. So if I go to my solution homepage, I can now see that I've got my tasks. Oops, I didn't mean to go there. If I go to my case homepage, I've now got my list of tasks and some overdue tasks. And that's just showing you kind of task management, but you can also do things such as coming in here, and I've got a document library. It's empty at the moment, but maybe I want to put some content in there. You know, I could again come in here and create manual folders and manual documents as placeholders, but I can actually do a create folder action. And okay, I've got these 3 folders, and I can click save. This defines my common structure, and I can do that at site creation, or I can do it later on in the process as well, or I can manually trigger it. So I've got lots of options there, and I'm conscious that we're at time, so I will show one last part of the demo, and then hopefully go to Q&A. So give me 2 seconds. But as I mentioned previously, emails are a type of document. So here I've got a email that I sent to myself. It's got a number of documents. And if I was in standard kind of SharePoint, I'd have to go and select those documents, maybe do upload, and I have to go and find where I'm going to upload it to or save as, and then I have to go and maybe map to a OneDrive location or save to my desktop and upload. Really cumbersome and difficult for the users. Whereas here in WorkPoint, our WorkPoint Express, I want to copy these into our project chase, into our reports folder. I can literally just drag and drop. It's going to ask me to prompt me, am I sure? You can see that it's uploading 3. And if I go back to my project chase, this browser, I go into my reports, I can see those files have just been added by me, and they've got all that metadata already associated without having to do anything apart from drag and drop. So just conscious that we're out of time. So one of the key things for me was, we make SharePoint easy. We remove a lot of the complexity from the users. I know I touched on a lot of features and functionality here, but the thing is, the user doesn't need to think about it. WorkPoint does the hard stuff. It creates the sites for them. It makes sure the structures are correct, makes sure the metadata is captured. It sets the permissions correctly. It ensures you're using the right templates. It can create content for you so you don't have to manually create it. There's a lot of things that it does for you. And the final slide was just to say, we're not just SharePoint. Within WorkPoint, we use all the Microsoft 365 products. So Florian, I will hand the floor back to you to see if there's any questions.
Perfect. I think everybody saw that Dom could speak hours and hours about WorkPoint and about the benefits of WorkPoint. This is absolutely brilliant. I sent it you like the last time as well, Dom. I sent it you in Microsoft Teams, the question, because I think this is always easier for you and maybe it's a good idea to read the questions and then answer it. So this is, I think, the easiest way.
Okay, so the first question is what happens when someone adds a member manually using SharePoint default permissions manager. So if you set up the rules will override the manual setting of permissions. And typically we kind of recommend that you don't give the permissions to people to add permissions, if that makes sense. We tend to say, control it through the rules rather than giving them explicit permissions. So really giving them the limited amount of permissions as possible. How do I open a PDF file in a PDF application and not in the browser? It's a good question, and probably more of a Windows question then. But I think there's various settings around the client side. I don't know necessarily the answer to that. I might probably should at this stage. But yeah, I know PDFs will quite often open in the browser, but I think if you have Adobe installed, you can set that as your default PDF viewer. But I don't know if that's necessarily the correct answer, so apologies.
There's no problem, Dom. You don't have to know everything. So we will give the audience a little bit more time as well to ask some questions. But during this time, I will say something about next events and also some recommendations. So if you want to get more information about WorkPoint, we highly recommend the YouTube channel WorkPoint 365 Explore. So there you can find also very interesting interviews, like with Thor Haraldsson, one of our partner, or also tips and tricks, where we also made the batch feature with the PDF file to combine into PDF file. This we already did in WorkPoint 365 Explore as well. So if you want to know exactly how it works, there it is as well. So visit our channel, enjoy the videos, and if you like, it would be a pleasure to subscribe or like our videos. Also, we will have a lot of other interesting webinars in the future, so please check out our social media channels and of course the website for more information. Also, if you want to come in contact with us, visit our homepage, contact us directly if you have any questions, suggestions. We want to get better and better every time. So this is for us very important. Dom, I see we have until now no questions. So like always, your presentation was brilliant. That's why we have no questions, of course. I think I would say thank you very much for watching. I hope we both see you next time as well. Oh, wait, I will never forget one question. So I will send you the question again, Dom. So then you can answer the question easily and we can this is also very important to answer, of course, the question. So here we go.
No, so the question, I should read the question. Is it hard to modify project templates? Can a super user do it, or is it necessary for WorkPoint assistance? The short answer is no, it's really easy. It's not a hard thing to do, but you do have to have some SharePoint knowledge. So it wouldn't be, as I say, a super user who has had some SharePoint and WorkPoint training could definitely make the changes and publish them. You don't need to get a developer in or anything like that. You know, obviously our partners will help you set up your solutions, but yes, it's I would show it, but it's literally as easy as going into a site, making your changes, and then saying publish these changes up.
Perfect.
What a great question.
So I would say thank you, Dom. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your presentation. It was a pleasure with you again. Thank you all to attend this webinar, and see you the next time. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.